Welcome to the Zana AI Talk podcast channel. We love getting your questions and, doing these deep dives into all sorts of research. And today we're tackling one that's really interesting. It's all about blockchain security and smart contracts.
Yeah.
One of our listeners reached out wanting to know just how secure these systems are and what kind of risks businesses should be thinking about.
Such a good question, especially now with, decentralized finance and NFTs and all this stuff going on in the blockchain world.
Totally. And they sent us so much information, articles and research papers and case studies all about exchanges being hacked and vulnerabilities in smart contracts.
Wow.
And even cases where just a typo caused like massive problems.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you've got this cutting edge technology and then these like age-old security issues. It's like the Wild West out there.
Okay, well, before we get lost in the Wild West of vulnerabilities, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. Can you give us like a quick blockchain 101?
Yeah.
What is a blockchain and how do smart contracts fit in?
So imagine like a digital ledger, this giant spreadsheet, but it's spread across a whole network of computers. And this ledger keeps track of every single transaction, and it's incredibly difficult to tamper with. That's the blockchain in a nutshell. Now, smart contracts, they live on the blockchain, and they're basically self-executing agreements. But instead of being on paper, they're written in code.
Like a digital vending machine. You put in your digital money and the smart contract spits out whatever you're buying.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. But instead of snacks, we're talking about, cryptocurrency or digital assets or even like more complex agreements.
Yeah.
And that's where things get interesting because if there's a mistake in that code in the smart contract, things can go wrong
Oh, yeah.
really quickly.
And I know from all this research that there's so many ways things can go wrong. There's 51% attacks,
Right.
cryptojacking, flash loan attacks, rug pulls. I mean, the names are scary.
They can be, but understanding how these attacks work, that's the first step to preventing them, right?
Right.
So let's start with the 51% attack, which is, one of the most well-known ones. And it basically happens when one person or one entity manages to gain control of more than 50% of the network's computing power.
Wait, so even though blockchain is supposed to be decentralized, someone could take control of the whole thing?
In theory, yes. If they have enough computing power, they can manipulate the blockchain, maybe reverse transactions or even like double spend coins.
Wow.
But to be clear, this is extremely difficult to pull off, especially on larger, well-established blockchains like Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Okay, good. That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But it still just shows how important it is to understand these vulnerabilities.
Oh, absolutely. And the more popular a blockchain becomes, the more computing power you would need to launch one of these attacks. So in reality, you tend to see them more on smaller, newer blockchains that don't have as much security built in.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked about how attackers can target the network itself.
Yeah.
But what about the smart contracts that run on those networks?
Yeah. So smart contracts, they have their own unique set of vulnerabilities. And a lot of times it's due to errors in the code itself, just like any software, that they can have bugs that make them vulnerable.
And you flagged this one example from the research that was really interesting, the story of Hedgic. It's a platform that lets you buy and sell options on cryptocurrency.
Right.
And they had to restart their entire protocol because of one typo in their code.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It shows how even just a small error can have huge consequences.
Yeah.
And in Hedgic's case, a missing S cost them $48,000 to fix and caused a lot of problems for their users. So it's just a reminder that thorough testing and auditing of these smart contracts is so important.
It's wild. I mean, it makes me feel a little better about my own typos, knowing that even experienced developers can make mistakes.
Yeah.
But seriously, it really highlights how important those audits are.
Absolutely. Having experts examine your code line by line to find any potential problems is crucial. It's like having a second set of eyes, or in this case, hundreds of expert eyes to make sure everything is secure.
And you mentioned that your client Prism, which is an NFT marketplace, they went above and beyond getting multiple audits from different firms.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
Well, just like with anything else, having multiple perspectives helps you catch things that you might have missed. Otherwise, different firms might have different areas of expertise or approaches to security testing. So having multiple audits gives you a much more comprehensive view of your code's security.
It's like getting a second opinion from a doctor, but for your smart contracts.
Exactly. You want to be as sure as possible that your code is secure before you release it into the world. It's better to be safe than sorry, especially when you're dealing with people's money and valuable digital assets.
Okay, so we talked about 51% attacks on the whole network and code vulnerabilities within the contracts themselves. But what about other types of attacks? I know the research mentioned things like flash loan attacks and rug pulls. Those sound pretty intense.
Yeah, they can be. And they're becoming more and more common in the world of decentralized finance or DeFi. So let's start with flash loan attacks. They're relatively new, and they exploit these unique features of these DeFi lending platforms. Essentially, an attacker takes out a massive loan, manipulates the market to their advantage, and then repays the loan all within the same transaction block.
So they borrow a ton of money,
Yeah.
make a quick profit by messing with the market, and then pay it back before anyone even notices.
That's basically it. And it can be incredibly profitable for the attacker, but it can also cause huge losses for the platform and its users.
It's like something out of a movie.
It does, doesn't it? And then there are rug pulls, which are a scam that's become way too common with new cryptocurrency projects. The developers create all this hype around their token, encourage people to invest, and then just disappear with all the money.
So they pull the rug out from under everyone's feet.
Exactly. It's a classic pump and dump scheme, but in the world of crypto, it can happen on a massive scale.
Wow, okay. There's a lot to be aware of in this space. It feels like a minefield out there.
It can feel that way, but remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about how these systems work and the potential vulnerabilities, the better you'll be able to navigate this exciting but sometimes risky world.
That's great advice. So what can businesses and individuals do to mitigate these risks? What are the key takeaways from all of this?
Well, first and foremost, do your research understand the platform you're using, the smart contracts you're interacting with, and the potential risks involved. Don't just jump into something without knowing what you're getting into.
Don't be afraid to be skeptical.
Exactly. A healthy dose of skepticism can go a long way in the blockchain world.
Yeah.
And remember, security is ongoing. It's not a one-time thing. You have to stay up to date on the latest vulnerabilities and best practices and security tools. The landscape is always changing, so continuous learning is key.
It's like anything else. You got to stay informed and adapt to new challenges. Okay, so we've talked about blockchain basics, different types of attacks, and some ways to mitigate risks. But what about the flip side? What are some of the potential benefits that make all this risk worth considering?
That's a great question, and it's important to remember that while there are risks associated with blockchain, there are also incredible potential benefits. And a lot of the vulnerabilities we've talked about stem from the very things that make blockchain so revolutionary.
There.
It's decentralization, it's transparency, it's immutability.
So let's dig into those benefits. What makes blockchain so revolutionary?
Well, one of the biggest is increased transparency because every transaction is recorded on this public ledger. It's way harder to hide fraudulent activity or manipulate data. This can be super valuable in industries like supply chain management, where you need to track products from their origin to the consumer.
So you could literally track your coffee beans from the farm to your cup.
Exactly. You could see every step along the way, making sure the beans were ethically sourced, transported properly, and handled safely.
That's amazing. What other benefits are there?
Another big one is increased efficiency and reduced costs, because blockchain cuts out the need for intermediaries like banks or other financial institutions. Transactions can be much faster and cheaper.
It's like cutting out the middleman. You always save time and money.
Exactly. And in addition to transparency and efficiency, blockchain can also enhance security. I know it sounds counterintuitive given everything we've talked about, but the blockchain itself is incredibly secure. Once a transaction is added, it's virtually impossible to change it or tamper with it.
So it's secure in that sense, but the applications built on top of it are where the vulnerabilities come in.
That's right. The challenge is making sure that those smart contracts and other applications are secure and bug-free. But if we can overcome those challenges, blockchain has the potential to revolutionize everything from finance and supply chain management to healthcare and voting systems.
The potential is huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive,
We have.
exploring the basics of blockchain, dug into some common vulnerabilities, and even touched on the potential benefits.
It's been a great discussion, and I'm looking forward to going even deeper in the next part. We'll look at some real-world examples, talk about how regulations are evolving, and discuss what the future holds for blockchain security.
I can't wait. This is all so fascinating. But before we move on, I want to remind our listeners that we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
If you want to learn more about blockchain security and explore the resources our listener provided, be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the articles and research we've talked about today.
And if you're interested in staying up to date on all things blockchain, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
We're always diving into new topics and exploring the cutting edge of technology.
We'll be right back after a quick break with more insights into the fascinating world of blockchain security.
So, before the break, we were talking about the incredible potential of blockchain, but also, the risks that come with it.
Right.
It's like this new frontier full of opportunities, but also, hidden dangers. And some of those dangers aren't just about the technology itself.
Right. You're talking about the human element. I
Exactly.
mean, we've all fallen for those phishing scams, clicked on a bad link. How does that play out in the blockchain world?
Well, think about your crypto wallet, right? That's where you store your digital assets,
Mm-hmm.
and it's protected by a private key,
No,
like a super secret password that only you should know.
got it. Like a digital vault for my crypto.
Exactly, but if you lose that key or if it gets stolen through something like a phishing attack, your funds are gone and there's no bank or central authority to help you get them back.
Ouch. That's a hard lesson to learn. So
No.
it's not just about the tech being secure, it's also about us humans being smart and protecting our own information.
Exactly. And then there's the whole regulatory landscape, which is still evolving, and that creates another layer of complexity.
Right. Our listener actually pointed this out in their notes that the lack of clear regulations makes it hard to know what's safe, what's risky, who to trust. It's like navigating uncharted territory.
Yeah, think about it. Traditional financial systems, they've been around for centuries. They have tons of rules and regulations to keep things in check.
Yeah.
But the blockchain world is still relatively new, so those rules are still being written.
It's a double-edged sword. The lack of regulation allows for innovation and growth,
Yeah.
but it also leaves the door open for, bad actors and scams.
Exactly. It's exciting, but somewhat chaotic.
Right.
And that kind of brings us to the future of blockchain security.
Okay.
What's interesting is that we're seeing so much effort being put into making things more secure, both from the tech side and the regulatory side.
So what are some of the trends or developments that are shaping this future? What can we expect to see in the coming years?
Well, one area where we're seeing a lot of progress is in developing more secure blockchain protocols. Think of this as like strengthening the foundation of the whole system.
Okay, so building a stronger base to prevent those network-level attacks.
Exactly. Developers are working on new consensus mechanisms, more robust cryptography, and better ways to prevent things like that 51% attack.
And what about smart contracts? Are there ways to make those more secure?
Absolutely. One really interesting thing is the use of formal verification for smart contracts. It's
Right.
where you use mathematical techniques to actually prove that a contract does what it's supposed to do, and nothing more. It's like a guarantee that your code is bug free.
Wow, that sounds pretty reassuring, especially when you're dealing with a lot of money or sensitive data.
Yeah, it's a field that's gaining a lot of traction. And then, of course, there's the rise of all these security tools and services specifically designed for blockchain.
Right. Our listener mentioned bug bounty programs,
Yes.
where companies invite ethical hackers to find vulnerabilities and then reward them for it. It's like a controlled hackathon to find weaknesses before the bad guys do.
Exactly. Bug bounty programs have been really successful in traditional cybersecurity, and now they're being used by blockchain projects too. It's a proactive way to find and fix problems before they can be exploited.
So staying ahead of the game, it sounds like the industry is taking security pretty seriously.
They have to, as the blockchain ecosystem grows and more money comes in, the stakes get higher. And it's not just about the technology, there's also a growing awareness of the importance of education and training.
Right. I remember reading about universities offering courses in blockchain security. Now it's becoming its own specialized field.
It is, and it's not just for developers, and anyone working with blockchain needs at least a basic understanding of the risks and how to mitigate them. It's like learning the rules of the road before you start driving.
So to sum it up, it sounds like the future of blockchain security is multifaceted.
Yes.
Better technology, stronger regulations, and more education.
That's a great way to put it, and it's an ongoing process. As the technology evolves, so will the threats and the solutions.
It's like an arms race, but in the digital world.
Exactly. But with each step, we're getting closer to a more secure and trustworthy blockchain ecosystem.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges and the future of blockchain security.
Wait.
But let's not forget about the amazing potential this technology has. Our listeners sent us articles about how it's being used to change everything from supply chain management to healthcare.
It's true, the possibilities are vast, and that's what makes this feel so fascinating. We're really just beginning to explore how blockchain can be used to solve real-world problems.
So even with the risks, the potential benefits are huge.
Absolutely. And as the technology matures, we can expect to see even more innovative applications in the years to come.
It's an exciting time to be following this space.
It really is. And remember, knowledge is your most valuable asset in this world.
Great advice. So we're back and ready to kind of wrap up our deep dive into all this blockchain security stuff. It's been quite a journey so far.
Yeah, it has.
We've covered the technical stuff, the human elements, the
It
regulations.
really shows you how blockchain is more than just technology, right? It's this whole ecosystem with its own, challenges and opportunities.
Totally. And speaking of challenges, we've touched on some of the hurdles that blockchain needs to overcome to really reach its full potential.
Yeah.
What do you see as the biggest roadblocks?
Well, scalability is a big one. A lot of blockchain networks right now can only handle a limited number of transactions per second.
Okay.
That's fine for smaller applications, but if we're talking about using blockchain for like global payments or massive supply chains, things need to move a lot faster.
It's like trying to fit a whole ocean through a tiny straw.
That's a great analogy, and the good news is a lot of people are working on solving this problem.
Okay.
Things like layer 2 networks and sharding are being explored as ways to, speed up transactions without sacrificing security.
So it's all about finding that balance between speed and security and efficiency.
Exactly.
What else is on the blockchain challenge list?
Interoperability is another big one. Right now we have all these different blockchain platforms, each with their own rules and protocols. It's almost like trying to get people speaking different languages to understand each other.
A blockchain Tower of Babel.
Yeah, exactly. To really unlock the full potential of blockchain, we need to find ways for these different platforms to communicate and work together
Okay.
seamlessly that would let developers build applications that use the strengths of different blockchains and create, a truly interconnected ecosystem.
So building bridges between those different blockchain islands.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's user adoption.
Right.
Blockchain can be kind of complex and intimidating for the average person. So if we want to see mainstream adoption, we need to make these systems more user-friendly.
Right. So it's not just about the technology, it's about how people interact with it.
Exactly. We need intuitive interfaces and clear explanations and just make it easier for people to use blockchain without needing a PhD in computer science.
Yeah. Make the technology invisible so people can just do what they want without worrying about how it all works.
Exactly. Like, think about the internet. We don't think about all the technical stuff. Every time we send an email or watch a video, we just use it.
Right.
And that's the kind of experience we need to create for blockchain.
Okay. So as we wrap up this whole deep dive,
All right.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think it's that blockchain is incredibly powerful. It has the potential to change so many things, but it's important to approach it with both enthusiasm and caution.
So don't get caught up in the hype, but don't dismiss it either.
Exactly. Do your research, understand the risks, be prepared to adapt as the technology evolves. The future of blockchain is bright, but it's up to all of us to shape it responsibly.
That is fantastic advice. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We've covered a ton today,
Hmm.
and I hope everyone listening feels more informed and, ready to explore the world of blockchain.
It's been my pleasure, and remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about blockchain, the better we can use it to create a more secure and innovative future.
Couldn't agree more. And to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this, be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the articles and research we talked about. And if you want more insightful conversations like this, please subscribe to our channel. We're always exploring new topics and diving deep into the latest tech advancements. Until next time.